delighted to welcome Stephen Moss to the Global Birdfair podcast. And Stephen, forgive me if I'm probing too far, but I suspect you have quite a history with the bird fair, and I suspect there is a lot more to you than most people who just come and listen to you would even be faintly aware of. So give us a flavour of your backstory.
Well, I've been to Bird Fair. This will be my 32nd Bird Fair. I think I missed the first three, and I've been to every single one that's been held ever since. And it's my happy place. It's the place I enjoy. I enjoy that weekend without question more than anything else. And I do lots of other wonderful things. And I'm very lucky to have a hobby into my job, and I've made television programs on birds and written books, and I take bird tours out, and I go to wonderful places around the world, and I love all of them, but I would give it up as a shot for Bird Fair. I just adore it. And yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful event.
It's extraordinary. I mean, it really is a coming together of naturalists, conservationists, and just really interesting people from all over the world, isn't it?
Yes, and it has been for a very long time. But what's great about Bird Fair is that it's changed and developed over time. And the big change, and I wrote about this recently for Birdwatching magazine, partly in response to some rather mean criticism of Bird Fair. But what has changed massively for the better is the kind of people who are there. There was always diversity at Bird Fair and inclusivity because there were a lot of people from around the world. So it's always been global, even before it was called the Global Bird Fair. But what was lacking for many years, because it reflected the nature of birding and wildlife and conservation, that there were an awful lot of men, there were an awful lot of older men, there were quite a few kids, a few women, and virtually no one aged between about 16 and probably 40, to be honest. And not much diversity in terms of people's backgrounds. And certainly, it was great. I loved it, but it reflected what birding was like at the time. Now it reflects what birding is like today, which means hugely diverse and inclusive in a way that I don't think any of us could ever have imagined. So, hats off to Tim, but also to the people who've come to Bird Fair and said, okay, we'll embrace this. People who perhaps when they first came felt a bit left out. I did when I first came. I didn't know anyone, but everyone was very nice to me. And the next year I knew a few more people, and the third year I knew lots of people. So yeah, for me, that's what makes it wonderful.
Several people I've been talking to say, oh, I'm going to Bird Fair for the first time and I don't know anyone. So I say, you will know pretty much everyone you meet. They will become your friends instantaneously. It's that kind of place, isn't it?
Exactly. I remember my wife, Suzanne, she came the first time about 20 years ago. And she came back to me and she said, oh, I've just made a new friend. I said, who's actually Chris Rose? I said, well, Chris Rose, the acclaimed international bird artist. He and I take the mickey out of each other for that. Now, at that point, I knew who Chris was. He knew who I was. We'd not really ever chatted. And Suzanne created that bridge and made, Chris and his wife, Donia, are now some of our closest friends. And I think that's the great thing. If you're willing, as she was, to go and just chat to people. And it is difficult the first time. I was a bit nervous the first time. I took my 5-year-old son, who's now 38 and had a son of his own. And we wandered around and we nodded to Bill Oddie because I'd met Bill a few times, but I hadn't worked with him, and he was very friendly. And then I met some other people who were frankly living legends from my childhood, people like Ian Wallace over the years, got to know him. Tony Soper, of course, used to come there for, years ago. And wonderful people from all around the world, and just go and chat with them. If you're new to Bird Fair, don't worry. Come talk to me. Remind me who you are if you've met me before, because I have a terrible problem at Bird Fair that dozens of people come up to me and say hi. And I'm like, oh God, I can't remember where I met you. I'm really sorry. And sometimes they're quite close friends and I still can't recognize them. I have a bit of face blindness. So yeah, if it's your first Bird Fair and you're watching this, please come. Try to come for all 3 days or at least 2 days and just immerse yourself in it.
Yeah, it's intense at times, isn't it? And I think the tailing off into a more peaceful Sunday is like the icing on the cake, isn't it? It's a reward to yourself for having got through the other 2 days.
Yes, an old friend of mine used to say that bird fair was 3 days of interrupted conversations.
Yes.
And I actually think one of the joys of bird fair is that the new Global Bird Fair is just that little bit smaller than the British Birdwatching Fair had become. I think it had become slightly too big in that you could walk around for 3 days, bump into someone at 5 o'clock on the Sunday and say, "Oh, have you just arrived?" And they say, "No, I've been here all 3 days." Like, well, I think now we've got just the right number of people, which works for the vendors and the various people. It works talks and things, but it's not quite as manically crowded as it was. I love the new site that we started out last year. I think it recaptured the spirit of the old site, but I think partly due to that, and partly, as I say, due to the fantastic array of people that come now, particularly young people. I say young people, of course, there are teenagers there and there are people in their 20s, but quite a lot of the young people who started coming the first time 12 years ago, they're now, dare I say it, they're in their late 30s, early 40s, and they're starting. So we've got this wonderful range of people now, and they're encouraging their younger friends.
Yeah.
And yet we've still got people of my generation there and much older, and we all feel welcome. That's the key to Bird Fair. It's a welcoming, friendly place. And, it is one of these places that you will hopefully make lifelong friends. I certainly have.
And it's extraordinary from the naturalist and other activity point of view. I mean, I've talked already to people who are interested in snow leopards, in lynxes, in penguins, in albatrosses, people from Hawaii, from the middle of the Pacific, from Lincolnshire. I mean, it is just truly diverse in whatever way you choose to measure that word diversity, isn't it?
Yeah, and there was a comment made recently saying in this article I was responding to, I won't say who by, saying, "Oh, I don't know why it's called Global Bird Fair. That seems to be pretentious." It's like, well, what else would you possibly call it? The only the argument you could make, and you're right, that because of there's stuff about all other wildlife and conservation. It's really bird, mammals, insects, other wildlife and conservation and environmental fair. It covers everything.
Yeah.
And again, some people say to me, "Oh, I like birds, but I'm a conservationist, or I'm more focused on insects or whatever." Come, there'll be people to talk to, and it's the serendipity of Bird Fair. It's the fact that during COVID we missed it terribly, and I was terrified, as I think many people were, that it would never happen again. And doing things like this, the fact we can chat to each other online, several hundred miles away, it's great, and that worked very well. And I'm big on, I give online talks, I do all sorts of things online, and that's good. And it helps a lot of people who can't travel, people who live the other side of the world. We can do this sort of thing online. That's good. But there is nothing to beat meeting people. And it's also the accidental things that happen. Last year, the famous accidental disco that happened on the Saturday night, when the podcasters just turned the music up a little bit and then up a bit more. And Tim and Penny, and they won't mind me saying this, Tim particularly was a bit worried that it would disturb the campers, and he came along, and 10 minutes later, they're dancing the night away, and I think we're going to have one this year, with a curfew at 11. That's fine. I need to get to bed by then. But I love it. Also, I bring various members of my family, and my daughter has come to virtually every bird fair since she was 6 months old. She's now 20. And I've got to be honest with you, she's not that into birds. It's the people that she loves, again, So, for me, that's what makes, so many things make it special.
Now, as I understand it, your background and range of interest pretty much accurately parallels that of the Bird Fair. You're an oft-published author, you're a TV producer, you're a traveler, a birder. What is it you're going to be doing at the Bird Fair this time round?
I'm sharing various quizzes, as I often do. I seem to have been put into that category, which is fine. I'm interviewing probably the greatest conservationist, living conservationist in Britain, Roy Dennis, incredibly modest man. And I'm doing a session with him on the Friday afternoon, I think at 4 o'clock, called Desert Island Birds. where he sent me a list of 8 birds, and I said, "Oh, Roy, tell me why you've picked these. You know, like Desert Island Discs, you don't pick your 8 favorite pieces of music. You pick the 8 that mean something to your life." He's done that, and he said, "No, you're going to have to work out why I chose these birds." Bless him. So fine. I've known Roy for about 30, 40 years now. You know, he's an extraordinary man. So that'll be great. I'm running the pub quiz on the Saturday night. We ran it last year. And I said to Mark Maddox, who does all the tech stuff, he said, "Well, I'll print out some answer sheets for people." And I said, "Well, yeah, print maybe a dozen, because we'll probably have 8 or 10 teams." And he said, "Well, I've printed 50. Really? And we had 50 teams. We literally got rid of every single sheet. And that was great. And we're doing that this year. And again, that's open to anyone. You can come along. And if you're on your own, or as a couple or 2 friends or whatever, we'll find a team for you. Don't worry if you're not an expert. There's lots of questions about birds in culture that the hardcore birders might not know. And there's also quite a lot of questions about birds that they might not know. I'm doing that with Neil Glenn, who's lethal at pub quizzes. So that's going to be fun. And yeah, but a couple of talks, and I'm working with my Chinese colleagues, NetView, who make the bird camera feeders, bird feeders and bird baths and bird boxes with cameras in. So they've got a stand. So working with them. So yeah, just incredibly looking forward to it.
Yeah, lots of interesting stuff. When you're talking about desert island birds, that reminds me, of course, one of your titles was it 10 birds that made the world for the sake of...
Made the world, yes. 10 birds that have made me quite well off, actually, at the moment, because they've had 8 foreign editions of this book, and it's selling extremely well in America. And it's just come out in Spain, and rather bizarrely, there's a Bulgarian edition. I have no idea why the Bulgarians are interested in this book, but they are, which is lovely. And I think Taiwan and Japan and Netherlands and Italy and Germany and somewhere else.
Your 10 birds were quite globally spread. Is there one that stands out in your mind that would say this is the one that made the world?
I think what's interesting is, well, I suppose what each of them did is made an aspect of the world. And they run from The Raven, which is all about mythology. It's really not a book about birds. It's a book about birds. It's a book about our relationship with birds. And the key message really is, if you mess with birds, they will mess back. As I say this, a raven is literally flying over my garden. So yeah, there's some extraordinary stories in there, from very well-known birds like the raven or the dodo or the bald eagle, to birds that not only they are a little bit more obscure, but their stories are quite obscure. The tree sparrow and the guanay cormorant. If you want to know why they're in there,
Buy the book.
you have to buy the book.
Absolutely.
You can read it in lots of languages now.
Well, that's amazing. I hope you've got enough to spread across those languages. Either that or your Bulgarian publisher will be coming complaining that you didn't have a Bulgarian species.
Exactly. No, what's interesting is I'd written a lot of very British-focused bird books, and I decided to do a global one deliberately because I wanted to, again, I suppose inspired by Global Birdfair, and the people you meet there, I wanted these stories to have a much bigger range. And none of the stories are particularly focused on Britain, even though some of the birds, like the raven.
Fantastic. Well, I think our conversation here could run on indefinitely, just like conversations over a trestle table somewhere in the middle of the bird fair in July. So I'm going to thank you for your time and look forward to maybe sharing another anecdote or 2 and a pint at the bird fair in July.
That will be splendid. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.